welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. And sorry, YouTubers, if you watched the intro, I still have my microphone on mute, so well, I'm not going to go back and edit it right now, not at this point at least. Anyways, welcome on into Fourth and a Mile. I am your host, Adam Fernandez. I am the Pharaoh / God King of Planet Adam, if you will. And this is Fourth and a Mile, and blah, blah, blah. Man, my brain's all over the place right now trying to figure out what's going on here. Again, it's, it's a Monday. I got a case of the Mondays going on. Speaking of, I hope all of you out there are having a great Monday, and I'm hoping y'all have a safe Monday night. If anybody's out there drinking, please do not drive. But we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. First, make sure you guys go over to bandcamp.com. Check out A Bloody Chasm featuring my friends Jocelyn Gonzalez, Matt Hutton, and the rest of the band called A Bloody Chasm. Now they have their demo album, A Bloody Chasm, out there on bandcamp.com, as well as the song A Bloody Chasm. If you caught the intro to the show, that was I Wanna Rock and Roll from A Bloody Chasm. They got all sorts of great music on there, so go check them out. Download some of their music. I'm sure that they would be more than happy to see all of you guys out there doing that for them. So let's get on into the sports news of the day, and it looks like we've got a pretty busy day here, so I'm hoping I don't take too long doing this episode tonight, but we shall see. So first off, Canelo is blaming Mexican cows. I could take that in 100 different directions, but I live here in San Antonio, so I'm just going to tell the story as it is. So, Canelo Alvarez today, according to TMZ, so take it with a grain of salt, it is TMZ, admitted to testing positive for a PED. That banned PED is clenbuterol. I had never heard of that in my entire life until I read this story. But what it is, it's often used by athletes to cut fat while retaining body mass. So you keep the strength, you cut the weight, and you can fit down there in the 160-pound middleweight division, which is what he's going to be doing when he goes for his rematch against Triple G, scheduled on May 5th. Now, according to Canelo, he is saying that it's from contaminated cows from down there in Mexico. According to him, it's been well, he says it is consistent with meat contamination that has impacted dozens of athletes in Mexico over the last few years. So he's saying that a ton of athletes from Mexico, or several athletes, have failed PED tests due to this one PED because of the meat that they're eating down there in Mexico. Now, he says that he is going to immediately move his training camp from Mexico up here to the U.S., which is exactly where the will be. I don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be back in Vegas again after the first fight. But he's going to be moving his training camp up here from Mexico, and he will submit to any number and variety of additional tests. And so he has, like I said, that highly anticipated match against Triple G scheduled for Cinco de Mayo, which I am going to definitely work my ass off to try to watch that fight. I don't think I'm going to pay $100-something for it. I'm going to try to find it free at some bar. But, yeah, it's going to be on May 5th. The first match that they had was an incredible match. That was a match I was showing you the highlights of, or the picture of, I should say. In case you don't know, Canelo is the gentleman on the right. Triple G is the gentleman on the left. The first match ended in a draw. Personally, I saw the match, and I watched it again today just to make sure that I'm still sticking by with what I said when I initially saw the fight, and that is that I believe Triple G won the match. I'm not saying by a ton, but he won the match in my opinion, but it was ruled a draw, so they're definitely going to do the rematch here. Here's the issue that I'm having with this story. Now, his team is saying, Canelo's team is saying that, he's had dozens of matches in the past and he's always tested clean. Very well may be true, but if he knows that these athletes are testing positive for this PED, this clenbuterol, and he knows it's from these cows down in Mexico, why is he eating that stuff? Why? That just, right there automatically kind of casts a shadow on what you're doing in your training. You don't need that as a pro boxer or any kind of a pro athlete. You don't want that shadow over you. So why is he eating meat from down there if it's causing trouble for dozens, as I said, quoting him, athletes from Mexico to test positive for it? That is a huge mistake on his part if that's the case. It would not surprise me if he was actually taking it himself. I mean, if you look at the guy is jacked. Canelo Alvarez is jacked. You see him and Triple G standing next to each other without shirts on. Yeah, Canelo is a monster compared to Triple G. So that would have to make me wonder just how long he's been doing it, and maybe they haven't really been testing for it, or maybe they've been letting him slide for it. I'm not going to sit here and say that that's what's going on, but it seems odd to me that it's because of the meat that he's been eating that now he's testing positive for this. And furthermore, he claims to not be a cheater, but he's an eater. That's what the Bleacher Report said, and they weren't quoting him on that, but I don't know if that was a line that he said. But if that's the case, then why is it just now coming out positive for that? Is he eating a lot more right now, or than what he did in the before the first match? Or is it just that he's trying to find an advantage? I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he was cheating. I'm just saying that sounds a little fishy, even though it's talking about cow, so that would be beefy. But it sounds a little fishy to me that he's now testing positive for clenbuterol after being a boxer for quite a long time and always apparently being an eater. Although when you look at him, he doesn't look like he seriously doesn't look like he has an ounce of fat on his body. He is that jacked. So I don't know. It just, like I said, it smells fishy to me, or beefy, however you want to look at it. So again, it was a report from TMZ, so take it with a grain of salt. It might be completely false, but if it's true, then I might have to question just how long Canelo has actually tested positive for it, and while they've actually tested for it, So on to other news, and let's go ahead and we're gonna go to the NFL right now because we got several things to talk about with the NFL. My buddy, I've never met the guy. He has no idea who I am, but he's my buddy. Coach Lane Kiffin of my FAU Owls. Got in a little trouble over the weekend when he was being interviewed and was being asked about his new offensive coordinator, Charlie Weiss Jr., who, according to everybody that knows Charlie Weiss Jr., has said that this kid is a total prodigy when it comes to football. There is nobody that has ever known the X's and O's as well as he has at his age. He's only 24 years old. So that is why Lane Kiffin brought him on. Plus, he already knows Charlie Weiss Jr. Charlie Weiss Jr. was a offensive analyst at Alabama, while Kiffin was the offensive coordinator there. Then when Kiffin got the head coaching job at FAU, he actually brought Charlie Weiss Jr. on as the tight ends coach. Charlie Weiss Jr. left after a couple months, didn't coached with them at all during the regular season, but he left to go join the Atlanta Falcons as an offensive analyst. And now that the offensive coordinator position came up for FAU because Kendall Briles left to go to Houston to fulfill the same position, he brought on Charlie Weiss Jr. as the offensive coordinator. So when Kiffin was asked about it, one of the things he said about Weiss, outside of all the great attributes that Weiss has as a coach, is that he always looks at his coaching or at his prospective coaching staff's wives, because that tells him how great of a recruiter that guy is. So that is 100% Lane Kiffin being Lane Kiffin. With the whole Joey Freshwater thing, if you see Lane Kiffin saying something completely different, something PC, then you just don't know Lane Kiffin. He is far as far can be from being PC. He is a bit of a whack job, but he's a brilliant football mind. That's why he's the head coach at FAU. That's why he was the head coach at USC and at Tennessee, and the youngest head coach at the time in the history of the NFL when he coached for the Raiders. He is a brilliant football mind. Now, on to what he said this last weekend, where there's a lot of people up in arms about that. About saying that was a sexist comment. I don't see it as such. I see it as Lane Kiffin. It's Lane Kiffin. If there's one word that you can describe, or that you can use to describe him, that does not have to do technically with football, it's controversial. He has always said and done controversial things. The whole Joey Freshwater thing when he was the OC over at Alabama, and going into a bar and telling everyone his name was Joey Freshwater so that they wouldn't recognize him as Lane Kiffin. That's Lane Kiffin. That's what he does, Joey Freshwater. So, anyways, yeah, I don't see it as an issue. Anybody that's bringing it up as an issue are people that just are wanting it to be an issue, and I think those people need to grow up and possibly grow a pair, So, I just found it to be an extremely funny story personally. So, all right, so on to the NFL Combine, and I'll give you my takes so far, or not so far, but about the Combine. There were two guys I was really keeping my eye on, and one of them was Shaquem Griffin from University of Central Florida, the Golden Knights there. I think they're just the Knights now. They got rid of the Golden part. Anyways, this is the young man who played linebacker at the highest level of college football. Granted, yes, he played in the American Conference. It's not like, say, playing in the SEC, but he played it at a very stellar, very just dominating point. He was the best linebacker in that conference, in my opinion. Here's the cool thing about the guy. He has only one hand. His left hand was, while he was in the womb, the umbilical cord got wrapped around it and basically cut off circulation. So when he was born, they had to remove his left hand. So he's lived his entire life, essentially, without his left hand. And this guy has just dominated other, whatever defense he was, or offense he was playing. He played a big role in UCF's win over Auburn in the Peach Bowl. He just played a big role for them all season long. The last two seasons, he's just been a monster in the middle of that defense. So over the weekend, while at the Combine, he amazed everyone first by doing 20 bench reps. Now, I can't remember exactly how much weight is on when they do the reps there, but that is utterly amazing. Especially, I mean, coming from a guy that can maybe do a half of a rep, from the bench press, maybe half. Most likely, I'd probably give up before I even try. Doing 20 of them is amazing. Now, this guy is doing 20 of them with a artificial hand essentially attached to him, and it cuffs around the bar to keep it in place, and he's bench pressing like that. So he did 20 reps like that. Shows just how strong he is, how much of a monster he is. But then on top of that, he had the fastest 40 recorded by a linebacker since 2003 at 4.38. That is amazing speed. There were wide receivers that were out there doing the 40 that weren't even coming close to that. Like, they were up in the high 4.4s. I saw one that was like a 4.5. And, geez, don't even get into those offensive linemen that were running at 5.2. You know, so this kid is amazing. Last I saw, they were actually picking him to be a high round draft pick, somewhere around the 5th or 6th round. I think with this combine performance, you might be looking at him in the 2nd or 3rd round. I think a big part of it is going to be the fact that he does not have his left hand. There's no doubt of that. And it's understandable why. You know, yes, he was able to make interceptions at college, but is he going to be able to make interceptions at the pro level with only one hand? And that's what's gonna really set him back. Now, I'm looking forward to seeing him play next season on Sundays and having him shut up all the critics, because this guy is a certified badass, 100% badass. This kid is amazing. I really, really, truly hope he gets drafted either by the Dolphins or the Buccaneers, as I am a fan of those two teams. So I am really hoping that he does, and that he just destroys every offense that he plays next year and the years after that. So good luck to Shaquem Griffin. I will be watching come draft time, and it looks like Braun Strowman just broke, what's his name, Elias's neck, by the way. I am watching wrestling right now as well. Now, the other player that I wanted to discuss is Lamar Jackson. Now, Bill Polian has gone out and said that he doesn't feel that Lamar Jackson should be, and there's several other football analysts saying this as well, should be a quarterback. He was a quarterback at the University of Louisville. He won the Heisman Trophy his freshman year, just the third person in history to do that. Funny, they've all been in the past few years, by the way. Starting with Johnny Manziel. Or actually, I take that back. I think he was a sophomore last year when he won it. So, either way, so the, I guess, scuttlebutt on him is that he should be a wide receiver because he's very athletic, very fast, but he's not that great of a passer. And so at the Combine, he didn't participate in the 40. He's going to wait and do the 40 at his pro day at Louisville. And I can understand why. You know, I really do, because he wanted to get away from people thinking that all he's going to be able to be is a wide receiver. You know, and so he's going to go ahead and run the 40 at his pro day where it's controlled by him, not so much by league officials. But when he was doing his passing drills, I'll say this, he left a lot to be desired. He had some great passes that were just teardrops in there that were beautiful passes. But then he had several that were behind his receivers, several that fell way short of his receivers on deep routes. So he left a lot to be desired out there. And so come his pro day, he needs to make sure that he gets that figured out and is able to turn it around and start putting these passes on the button. Because that was not a overwhelming performance for someone who is absolutely refusing to be a wide receiver and absolutely wants to be a quarterback. Will he make it at the NFL level? I think he could. But if he's so adamant about being a quarterback, he needs to improve, especially on those deep routes. He's got a cannon, but when he... And this is just what I saw from watching him play. I think I saw him play like 2 or 3 games this year. When he throws it deep, he's more often than not way off the mark. His completion percentage was only 56%, which is not great. I know a lot of people are talking about Josh Allen's completion percentage this year was even less than that, but they're picking him to be a top quarterback pick. But that's because of a couple things. First off, he's being kind of looked at as the Brett Favre style quarterback. Brett Favre was never all that great of a completion quarterback. Never really was. He was a gunslinger. And the other thing is that at Wyoming, Allen was more in a pro-style offense as opposed to Lamar Jackson, who was, up until this combine, never in his life had he ever taken snaps from center. He's always been in the shotgun. Every single play he's ever ran, was always in shotgun. So he needs to learn how to do that, how to drop back and all that from being under center. So he's really going to have to improve on that come his pro day. I'm not exactly sure when his pro day is, but it's not too far away. So he really needs to improve on that in order to be drafted as a quarterback. And I still don't think he's going to be drafted highly as a quarterback either. And that's just simply because, again, he's new to the lining up under center. His passes were off a little. I mean, he threw some that were just beautiful passes, but then he also threw some that were just way off. So, and yes, I'm drinking a Coke tonight. I didn't feel like going to the store to get more Dr. Pepper. I basically drank all my Dr. Pepper over the weekend. So, let's go ahead and move on then to now what I'm thinking might be the big story of the day here. And let me see if I can get my notes to go up there so I can read them. There we go. And the reason this is because I think it's a stupid article. And I'm trying to find, I know I wrote his name down. I'm trying to find out where I wrote it down at, the guy that wrote the story. Jerome Solomon, there we go. Jerome Solomon from the Houston Chronicle has reported that the Texans aren't interested in any free agents that protested during the national anthem. He says he gets this according to two nameless now player agents in the NFL who have come out and said that Bob McNair is not interested in either free agents that protest the national anthem or any draft picks that might protest the national anthem. I don't know where they get that from, simply because I don't know who these agents are. I don't know who his sources are. But that's what he's saying. He writes for the Houston Chronicle. This is the Houston Texans, so he feels compelled to write about it. Now, this is pretty much what it was. The first 3 paragraphs of this article were basically praising the Golden State Warriors for not attending the White House function as the NBA champion, simply because he, Trump's a racist, obviously. The next 2 were centered around those 2 unnamed agents that were the sources of this report. Then the rest of the article was based on how Bob McNair doesn't own a racist organization, just that Bob McNair himself is racist. Now, in here, and I quoted one of his lines that he's saying that he's been told by players. There are many who believe that if Bob McNair could field a team with all white, all conforming, all pro talent, he would. Now, see, all of this really stems from one thing that Bob McNair said during the season last year. And there's Bob McNair right there. And what it is that he said was he basically misspoke when using a common phrase, a very common phrase. He said that the NFL can't allow the inmates to run the prison. That's the quote. The actual phrase is you can't let the inmates run the asylum. So now he's saying that there are people in these NFL circles, mainly in the media, to be honest with you. Apparently, some of the Texans players took offense to this, but I think they're smarter than that. that basically what he was saying is we can't let the inmates run the asylum. Now, if you look at it like this, okay? There is no doubt in my mind that Bob McNair doesn't look a day over 147. Okay? So he's an old man. And not excusing racism for old people. That's not what I'm saying. But let's go back and look at some old English literature, if you will. Charles Dickens. If any of you have ever read or seen any of the movies based on A Christmas Carol, there's that scene there where the two guys are coming to ask Ebenezer Scrooge to donate money to help the poor and needy at the time. To which Scrooge says, no, I don't want to donate. They say, oh, well, or do you wish to remain anonymous? He says, no, I wish to be left alone. And so they were telling him about the poor and the destitute in London at the time, to which he replies, and I quote, "Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses?" Now, the reason I bring that up is because prison has not always been a term used to put people who are criminals. It is the same thing as an asylum, which an asylum is, it doesn't necessarily mean someone mentally ill. It is basically a structure or an institution built to house people that are not fit for the outside world. Okay, so when you use that phrase, you're not saying that the people that you're talking about are not fit for the outside world. It's a euphemism. Okay? It's a euphemism. And so what he was saying essentially was, and I get again, I'm saying this, is he was saying that exact phrase. We can't let the inmates run the asylum. It has nothing to do with a prison. Yes, he used the word prison, but again, he misspoke. It's that simple. So, without any real proof that this man is racist, to use that against him as solid proof is just showing that you're an idiot. Because he meant, no doubt in my mind, because it's the common phrase, we can't let the inmates run the asylum. And being that prison and asylum are essentially one and the same thing, as I was talking about with the Charles Dickens novel, yes, it's exactly what that means. He's not calling anybody inmates. He's not saying that they belong in prison. What he's saying is, we can't let the people that are underneath us basically tell us what to do. Simple as that. Simple as that. It's the same way as any supervisor that you have ever had in your entire life. It's if you start trying to tell that supervisor what to do, then you're essentially the inmate running the asylum. And that's what he's trying to not allow to have happen. He's the guy that actually has money invested in it, not the players. He does. He's an owner. So, that's what he was saying. Now, if he is adamantly against signing free agents that are or that protest the national anthem, that's his right. As an owner of a football team, he owns the team. He's allowed to sign whoever he wants. And if he really believes that there is a difference between people that protested and people that didn't, and as far as being either good guys or bad guys, then yes, he's allowed to hire whoever the hell he wants. He's the owner of the team. Now, my thing is this. Am I against them protesting? Yes, I am. I'm against politics and sports, period. Get it out of there. Get it out of there. I've said that since the first ever show that I ever did the day after Thanksgiving, where I was doing it on my phone. I am against politics being in sports. But when you have idiots like Jerome Solomon writing articles with the sheer intent of making Bob McNair look like the worst person in history, and he goes on to say in there that, oh, I'm not saying Bob McNair is a racist, but da-da-da-da, and starts listing a point. And then one of his main points was, you know, he donated to the Trump campaign, so he's obviously racist. Jerome Solomon, shut the fuck up. Think of things as a rational human being. Write about sports if you're going to write about sports. Don't write about politics because you have no fucking clue what you're talking about. Period. So, oh man, that just got me. You know, I'm just like, I hate talking politics on here. I've said that from the get-go, and I've done my damnedest to stay away from it. But this article really pissed me off. Well, I'm not saying Bob McNair is a racist, but point A, point B, point C, point D, point E, and none of those were substantiated with facts. What they were was, in my opinion, that's what it was. So, you know what? I'll recommend, go read it from the Houston Chronicle. It was a story written today by Jerome Solomon. Go read it. I think that he is just being a total 100% complete douchebag. And he wants to force owners to allow players to kneel on the sideline, when frankly, guess what? They don't have to. They don't have to. The First Amendment does not guarantee you rights at work, I guess is the best way to put it, or freedom of speech at work. I think I've made this argument before on here. If I work at Burger King, do you think that the owner of the franchise I work for is going to allow me to hand out brochures against abortion? No. Why? Because it's bad for the business. And so maybe look at it like that. Maybe look at it like Bob McNair realizes what not only the NFL being a shit show itself, but also what these guys kneeling on the sideline during the national anthem has done to the ratings of the NFL. The numbers have been down drastically, and nobody can tell me that they haven't been. So, leave Bob McNair alone unless you get some audio tape like, what's his name, the former owner of the Clippers. And even that, you know what, that was a private conversation too, so even that one I'm kind of on. But, until you get something solid that he has said or done, drop this he's a racist because he donated to Trump bullshit. Seriously. If he doesn't want to sign any free agents because they were kneeling on the sidelines, maybe it's because he doesn't want his players ruining or destroying his bottom line. Because that is one of the reasons. And there's plenty of reasons, but that is one of them in particular that has caused the NFL's ratings to drop. And they dropped drastically. Even the Super Bowl, even the playoffs dropped. So, yeah. Don't tell me that that he's a racist just because he doesn't want his players kneeling on the sideline. Period. You're an idiot and you're copping out. That's a cop-out argument. All right? Whew! I didn't mean to get that heated there, but you know, and maybe I didn't. Maybe I just felt like I did. I maybe felt like I was taking a cause. I'm really not. Again, I'm talking politics with sports, but at the same time, if you're going to be a dipshit that writes that kind of an article, you need to back it up with facts, not with not with your opinion on something. So speaking of idiots. The Oscars were last night. I actually meant to start the show off with this one. And so if anybody out there watched the Oscars, you can rest assured I wasn't watching it with you at all. I was probably playing a video game or something. I don't remember the last time I watched the Oscars. I think the last time I watched the Oscars, Billy Crystal was hosting. And even then, it was a bunch of movies that I had never heard of and would never in a million years watch that won all the awards. So I'm just going to go through these real quick. Gary Oldman won the Best Actor award for Darkest Times, which is actually a movie I kind of want to see. First off, Gary Oldman is one of my 3 all-time favorite actors. It's Gary Oldman, Steve Buscemi, and Denzel Washington. Not necessarily in any kind of order. Just because every single time I see them, they end up one-upping each other. So, and I don't think I've ever seen either of those 3 in the same movie. But Gary Oldman is one of the finest actors I have ever seen. I first learned who the hell he was back when he played Dracula in Bram Stoker's Dracula, and that was an absolutely amazing performance. Everything he's done ever since has been the exact same way. This is his first Oscar, and I am happy as a pig in shit for him. Good job, Gary Oldman. Way to go. For the Best Actress award, Frances McDormand. I kind of want to say I know that name, but I don't know. I can't swear to you that I do. Won for some movie called 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I have never, ever heard of that. Never have seen anything about it. I have no idea what it's about. That's one of those that I will not watch simply because it just doesn't sound interesting at all to me. And then finally, for Best Picture... Sorry, that's not the best picture. That's the best movie. I don't know why they call it picture. Yeah. But something called Shape of Water won Best Picture. From what I understand, again, this is not one of the movies I will ever in a million years watch. If someone puts a gun to my mother's head and tells me watch this movie or I'll pull the trigger, sorry, Mom. I will not watch it under any circumstances just because it sounds stupid. From what I understand, it has something to do with... it's basically a unfunny remake of Mermaid, from what I understand. And so it has a bunch of fish sex, I guess. That's what I've heard. I don't know. But I have no desire to see it at all. I had never even heard of it until they started doing the nominations, and even then, I was like, "Nah." Yeah, so I don't care about that. So I just decided to bring up the Oscars just in case there were some movie fans out there, fans of the Oscars, and watched them last night. And if you were, then you can rest assured I did not, and I never will ever again, because they are the biggest waste of time I have ever seen. So. Quick baseball news. Ichiro is on the verge of signing a new 1-year deal with the original team that he came up with, the Seattle Mariners. They are in need of a right fielder right now. They're in need of a lot of positions. There's a lot of people getting hurt right now for them. Ichiro, who is 44 years old right now, says he wants to play until he's 50. And to be honest with you, I honestly think he can. I really do. Like, there is like something Superman-esque about Ichiro. If you've never seen him play, do yourself a favor, YouTube Ichiro highlights, or go watch him play. He is amazing, even at 44 years old. He's amazing. In other news, my Cardinals today signed shortstop Paul DeYoung, who was my, if I remember correctly, he was my 4th or 5th ranked shortstop that I would draft as an expansion GM. They signed him to a 6-year extension with 7th and 8th year option, or team option. So, and if I remember right, it was like right around 4.1, 4.2 million a year or something like that. So he's going to be making some decent money there. And the Cardinals have control of him for up to 8 years. So that's a big deal for the Cardinals. If he winds up being a bust, which I don't think he will be, I think he's going to end up being awesome. But if he does wind up being a bust, then they have control. They can go ahead and trade him away. And guess what? That's not a big pill for any team to swallow, so they'll swallow that or that in the trade. Or what if they are really that intent on having the Cardinals swallow it, then the Cardinals can do it too, because it's really not that much. So, in comparison to, most modern day contracts. However, they also try to offer Tommy Pham, the center fielder, an extension as well, but Tommy Pham says that it just wasn't enough. He doesn't think that they were taking him too seriously. At this point in his career, right now he's making 500-something thousand a year. I don't remember exactly what it is, and that's what he's still going to be making. But he's 30 years old already. Last year was his first real impactful year at the major league level. He had a couple spurts at the major league level before that, and never really panned out to be what they expected him to do. But last year he came out and he really was possibly the team MVP. Either him or Paul DeYoung were the team MVPs of the team. But at 30 years old, they're probably thinking that, we have him for another 2 years, 3 years. I don't remember how long he still has. At this rate, we'll see then how well he looks, because at that point he'll be 33, 32 maybe. And then we can decide if we want to move on from there, or if we want to go ahead and re-sign him to another bigger deal, which still wouldn't be a long-term deal. So I completely understand why the Cardinals didn't give him the extension that they gave DeYoung. DeYoung's only 23, so they're going to have DeYoung for all the time where he grows and then into his prime. So then that brings us to the top 5 relievers that I would draft if I were an expansion GM. I was going to do starters, but I figured I'd wait to do the starters tomorrow night, just as the grand finale of this series that I'm doing. So let's go ahead and get it started then with number 5. Now, you guys know what my belief system was as far as being a GM, where I wanted to draft players that are pretty young, that are going to be around for quite some time. And I still do want to do that with pitchers as well, don't get me wrong, but pitchers tend to have a longer shelf life than everyday players. It's just, it's just the nature of it, because they don't go out every day. They don't play every day like the everyday players do. So with these guys, they're on average not as young as all the everyday players that I've had from the previous days, from catcher on up to outfield, which I did on. Did I do that on Friday or Thursday? I think it was on Thursday that I did that. So yeah, these guys are a little older on average and have more experience, because I also think experience is a huge thing in getting a pitcher, because you want to make sure that that they are as good as they were that first couple of years that they were around, just to make sure that you're going to get your money's worth. Because if not, then you got guys like Eric Gagne, Gagne was phenomenal first 2 or 3 years there as the Dodgers closer, but then after that just plummeted, and you never heard from him ever again. So that's what you want to try to avoid with pitchers. So these are my top 5 guys that I would draft if I were a GM and looking for a reliever. Number 5, Art Bradley of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, he is still relatively young. He's 25 years old. Last year, he went 3-3, which is not all that telling out of a reliever. Had a 1.73 ERA through 73 innings, struck out 79. This guy has a fastball that tapers right around there, around 97, 98, 99 miles an hour, as well as he has a great changeup that I saw. I was looking at some of his highlights earlier just to make sure that he's who I wanted right there. He's got a great changeup, had a great slider. This guy is going to be really damn good. He's right now vying for the closer role for the Diamondbacks, and I think the Diamondbacks would be completely stupid if they didn't give him the closer role. I think that he's exactly what a closer should be. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does throughout his career. And yeah, he would be my number 5 guy right now. Maybe next year he might be my number 1 guy. But as of right now, he's my number 5. So then that brings me to my number 4 guy. And if you guys follow baseball, then you know who he is. That is Brad Hand of the San Diego Padres. Last year, he went 216, 21 saves. He wasn't their full-time closer up until the end of the year. 79 and a third innings pitched, 104 strikeouts. He is one of the premier closers in baseball, or one of the premier relief pitchers in baseball. I would definitely, I was actually really hoping that the Cardinals would trade for him during the offseason. I know that the Padres, before they picked up Hosmer, were actually open towards trading him. And even last year they were. And the Cardinals never made a move for him when the Cardinals absolutely need bullpen help. So I was very, very upset about them not going after Brad Hand. And I think that Brad Hand still has several years of really good pitching left in him. He is only what did I say? 27 years old. So he's not. He's still a bit of a spring chicken. So you got several years left of him. So, and then that brings up this one, number 3. Now this one was kind of hard because he got hurt last year. He wasn't having his best year. In fact, he was actually having his worst year as a reliever before he had an injury. But he suffered a rupture, I think it was his right Achilles, and it just shut him down for the rest of the year. And he's still going to be out for a big chunk of this season as well. But everything from 2014, 2015, and 2016, you know what? I really do believe that is the real Zach Britton. And so, thus, this one is Zach Britton at number 3. Like I said, last year he only had 15 saves, a 2.89 ERA, which was his worst ERA as a reliever, but he only threw 38 games. So, I think, like I said, I think he's one of the best relievers in the game. Just had that bad season last year before getting hurt and having to shut it down. And being a left-hander, and I know that Brad Hand was also a left-hander, but left-handed pitching in baseball it's like gold, just because you don't see it too much. Most teams have maybe one guy that's a left-hand specialist. So Zach Britton would be great for any team to have, and so that's why he would be my number 3. My number 2, and a lot of people would ask me, why isn't he your number 1? Well, that's because my number 1 I just like a little bit better. But my number 2 is Kenley Jansen from the Dodgers. Had his best season ever last year. He's 30 years old. Last year he had 41 saves, a 1.32 ERA in 68 and a third innings. 109 strikeouts in that time, little bit amount of time, almost 2 times as many strikeouts as he did innings pitched. That is absolutely amazing. He is definitely one of the very best closers in the game right now. The Dodgers would be stupid beyond all stupid to get rid of him. He's 30 years old, so like I said, pitchers, especially relievers, tend to have longer shelf life. He can go another 6, 7, 8 years before having to shut it down. Maybe even longer than that. As hard as he throws, that might be a little too much to ask, but still, if the Dodgers can sign him very long term, then you know what? They don't have to worry about a closer for a long time, at least barring any injury. He is, again, in my opinion, the second best reliever in the game. And so I think that'll shock you guys who my first one's going to be, because it's not who a lot of y'all might think it is, because it is not Aroldis Chapman. Aroldis Chapman is not in my top 5 simply because I've seen Aroldis Chapman play quite a bit. The guy throws... let me pull myself back up here. The guy throws, over 100 miles an hour most of the time. But I don't think his movement is nearly as good as what it should be to be a top 5 reliever. I think he just relies way too much on blowing people away. Game 7 of the World Series in 2016 showed that, guess what? People can catch up to it if given enough time seeing that fastball, they can catch up to it. And so he almost blew the game for the Cubs there, if you remember that. So Aroldis Chapman is not my number one guy. But who is? It's someone that Aroldis Chapman was against in that World Series. It is Andrew Miller. Andrew Miller. Andrew Miller has long been one of my favorite relievers in all of baseball. He is 32 years old. Yes, he is older than he's the oldest one on this list. But I think he's still got another 4 or 5 years left in him, and that would be great to have him around a bunch of young relievers, so that he can basically tell them the way or show them the way of being a reliever. Last year he threw 62 2/3 innings, had 95 strikeouts, had a 1.44 ERA. So his statistics weren't as good as Kenley Jansen, but if you look at it as a overall, I'd say that he's overall had a better career than Kenley Jansen. Andrew Miller is one of my favorite pitchers in the world. He's intimidating as hell. He's, what is he, like 6'7", 6'8", something like that. Has that long stride home. He's so fun to watch. So Andrew Miller is my number one. He's been that good for a very long time. So that's why he is my number one. So, alright guys, do we have any questions, comments, complaints, concerns about the fuck anything up? Did I do anything or say anything stupid? Let's go back and give you guys a quick run through. Canelo admits to testing positive for PED, and he blames it on Mexican cows, and I don't mean women when I say that. The NFL Combine, Shaquem Griffin looked phenomenal. Lamar Jackson left a lot to be desired. Lane Kiffin checks out girls when he's deciding on who his coach is going to be, who his coaches are going to be. But that's Lane Kiffin being Joey Freshwater. Jerome Solomon is trying to call Bob McNair a racist, though he has no evidence to back it up whatsoever. It's just that, you know, Bob McNair is an old white guy, so he's obviously racist, especially because he donated to Donald Trump. So obviously he's a racist, right? The Oscars, Gary Oldman won, Frances McDormand won, and oh yeah, Shape of Water won Best Movie. Okay, I'm just reading a message that I got from someone on Facebook. Anyways, and then my top 5 relievers. Oh yeah, Ichiro looks like he's going to re-sign with the Mariners. Paul DeYoung signed an extension with the Cardinals. Tommy Pham did not get the extension that he wanted to with the Cardinals. Sorry about that, man. Sodas are making me burp like crazy nowadays. I'm not a young man anymore, I guess, right? So top 5 relievers: Archie Bradley, number 5. Brad Hand from San Diego, number 4. Zach Britton from Baltimore, number 3. Kenley Jansen from the Dodgers, number 2. And Andrew Miller from the Indians is number 1. All right, guys. If there is nothing at all, no comments, complaints, suggestions, anything like that, then I hope you guys have a great Monday night. Be safe. And I will talk to all of y'all tomorrow. You guys have a great night. And as always, besos.